what's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know who it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. Hey, everybody, it is Tuesday. It's January 18th, and we're going to Denmark for this podcast. Well, the band is from Denmark. I'm still here at my home in the United States, but man, you guys are going to want to check out this one. But before we get jumping into it, I want to thank our sponsors. First, Phoenix Fitness. Yeah, we're into January already. And if you're still on the New Year's resolution kick of, we're hitting the gym, we're going to get healthy. Fantastic. Keep it up. But, as time goes on, you're going to want to make sure you see some of those gains. You want to see them strong muscles. Yeah. You want to see the cardio increase. You're going to want to see you be able to, run faster, jump higher, PF flyer style. So you want to make sure you properly recover right and prepare right. That's where Phoenix Fitness comes with different supplements such as pre-workouts, both, stimulant and stim-free stuff. I use stim-free stuff because, you guys see me on this podcast. I'm energetic enough as it is, and I really don't need the extra stimulants. BCAA recovery compounds, proteins for your morning, nighttime, and post-workout, creatines, multivitamins, anything you might need to achieve your fitness goals, Phoenix Fitness will help you out with. Our listeners get 15% off using the code MSOTD at checkout fnxfit.com. Thank you, Phoenix Fitness. Now, our second sponsor is Custom Debuts. So, we had so much great music come out in 2021. We have even more music coming out in 2022. And if you want to commemorate, something from your favorite artist, your favorite song, your favorite album, whatever it is, that's where Custom Debuts comes in. So what you do is you give them an artist and you give them either a song or an album from that artist, and they will create a very own custom poster for you specifically around that. What they'll do is they'll take your idea and they'll give you a custom poster with a proof of a print within 48 hours. And then this is the best part. The custom part comes in where you're able to make as many edits as you want going forward. So if you don't like the way that the track list is displayed, you don't like the way that the album artwork is displayed, heck, you can give them notes and they will come back to you with another proof. And when you're ready and set and ready to go, that's when you make it happen. You can get those prints on, your normal poster paper, museum paper, a canvas print, or even cooler, an aluminum metal sign, baby. You can get those at customdebuts.com. Our listeners get 10% off using the code CPP10 at checkout, link description below. So you want to be the coolest person, the coolest rec room, coolest, studio, have a great poster up there, or just be the coolest person in the office with an Ice 9 Kills poster that you made yourself. That's where Custom Debuts comes in. But now on to our featured presentation. So thanks to our friends at Adam Splitter PR and A Rising Empire, they sent over this band called Cold Night For Alligators. Their brand new album called The Hindsight Notes comes out on February 4th. And, well, I wasn't really sure what to make of it. Progressive metal with a forward-thinking attitude? Okay, what am I getting myself into? What is this going to entail? I don't really know. But I got to sit down and speak with Nikolaj, the drummer for the band. We got to talk about how the band came up with this album, how they've been waiting on this one for a while, and how just the wait has actually made this album hit so much harder in a style of, its concepts, its meaning, based on what's happened over the past 13 months. On top of that, we go into a couple other cool things, such as a saxophone solo, a new metal inspiration, and just how this song called Verism flows so nicely that you're going to want to check out this album, especially if you like the album such as, let's say, Swan Songs by The Plot in You. You like that album? You're going to want to check out The Hindsight Notes by Cold Night For Alligators. But before you check out that album when it comes out on February 4th, get ready for it with us right here on the Chord Progression Podcast with Nikolaj from Cold Night For Alligators. So are you guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. I have never recorded with a band from Denmark, which is absolutely incredible that I get a chance to do this. Thanks to Adam Splitter PR with their connection with the Rising Empire. They sent me a notice on this band. I'm like, okay, let's take a look at this. Forward-thinking progressive metal. At this point, I had no idea what to expect. This band has their brand new album called The Hindsight Notes coming out on February 4th of 2022. So please welcome Nikolaj from the band Cold Night For Alligators. So Nikolaj, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Woo! Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, man. Yeah. How's everything going over in Denmark? Now that we're into 2022, you got the new album coming out. How's everything going on your end?
Well, it's it's a little weird because we're busy with the release and we still really don't know how it's going to look right with the restrictions. But it's easing up, and I think we are starting to get a little more hopeful than we thought we would. We would have reason to, right? Because I don't know. It looks like we'll be able to come out and push it. So yeah, I think I would say we're keeping busy and looking forward to finally sharing this.
I'm looking forward to see what happens when people finally get their hands on it, because I will not lie, the note I got from Amsplitter PR when they sent this over, they're like, this is a brand new band with the Rise Empire. We're not necessarily sure what's going on here, but we want to give you guys a look at them to see what's going on. I'm like, okay, I want to take a look at this because, again, I have no idea what to expect, and sometimes the best surprises come out of nowhere. And after listening to the album once through, I'm just like, we got to make this happen. We have to do this. So I'm excited to talk about them, and also glad that maybe, well, hopefully I should say, restrictions will be lifting and will be easing as the album releases and as those shows that you have planned coming up are getting closer, because especially since March of 2020, with everything going on with live music, with sometimes it comes back, then the restrictions happen, all these different variants with the coronavirus. I'm not going to lie, it's been kind of troubling where we all just want to go out and see live music. You want to go out and play live music. You want to go out and perform. We want to see you perform. We want to have a great time. And stupid COVID.
Yeah, I feel you, man. A little backstory. We actually we finished the album in December 1 year ago, and then we shipped it around, signed with the Arising guys in January, and we agreed. We were talking about timelines with them, so they just said, all right, they want to be really on the conservative side. Really, we'll push it a year, so we're sure that we'll have things. Will probably, it looks like it might be easing up, and in a year from now, and now we're a year from now, and we still don't really know, right? Or a year from then. So I guess it's just time to unleash it, right? Because we've done all we can, and we're just really stoked to hear what the rest of the world thinks. It's not just us in our bubble talking about it.
Very true. And when it comes to the Rising Empire, with them wanting to play it more conservatively, I totally understand that, because when it comes to some of the bands that were releasing things, especially 2020 and early 2021, there were no live shows in sight, so there was going to be really no way to promote an album like that. I'll use Trivium as an example for this, because they released their album What the Dead Men Say back in April of 2020, and they recently released In the Court of a Dragon in October of 2021. So that album, and they released in 2020, really had no live show support, really had no tour support from them, because nothing else was going on. And I feel like that album kind of got a little bit lost in the shuffle, despite the fact that it is one hell of an album. It's one of my favorite Trivium. It's probably my favorite Trivium album up to date. So I totally understand where they were coming from, wanting to play this more conservative, so that when the album was released, hopefully the coronavirus pandemic was under control. Live shows were going on full force without any restrictions, without any potential postponements or cancellations, so that when you release the album, you could really hit the ground running with it for a worldwide release.
Yeah, and especially with touring opportunities, we're not a huge band, right? So at the outset of 21, we were all looking at all these tours had been postponed a year, so everything was just fully booked, and you were fighting over festival slots if you were releasing something. So we just figured, all right, we'll sit this year out, right? And then things will maybe have cleared up a little bit, because it looked like tours were going to come back in 21, and now we're looking into 22, where a lot of the stuff from 21 has ended up being postponed a year more. So it's sort of the same situation.
And even some of the stuff I'll say even some of the stuff from 2020 was even postponed into 2022 now. I've seen tours that were supposed to happen in 2020 now postponed to 2023, and I'm just sitting here thinking, why?
Yeah, we were talking to this German festival promoter, and he was just like, we for 22, right, 75% of the bill is just the 2020 lineup that's still that's been sticking around, right? Hoping to actually get to play a festival. That's.
Are you guys playing any festivals for the 2022 season, or is it something where all those bands that had been originally on lines for 2020 and 2021 have covered those slots, so the competition to get there in those potential open slots might have been too much?
Yeah, we definitely are, and we have a couple of confirmed. Some of them have been announced, some of them haven't, and we're working on more. So I don't really want to get too. I don't want to be premature on announcing anything. Unfortunately, nothing in the States for you guys yet, but in Europe we're going to at least the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands. We have confirmed shows, but we're looking to go further than that, if at all possible, with this record. So we're hard at work.
Oh, absolutely. I hope you go further than that. And I understand where, when it comes to the festivals, there are some that are announced, some that aren't announced, and you don't want to make any sort of announcement because it's not confirmed. I totally understand that. However, for the fans and for everyone listening, when it comes to trying to find Cold Night for Alligators on a festival lineup in Europe in 2022, the best thing you can do is just, pay attention, follow them online, follow all these different festivals online, because when the lineup's released, just take a look and see where they pop up.
Yeah, I can. We have all the usual social media platforms, right? And we're definitely we'll yell about it as soon as we have anything, because we're just we're staffed for it at this point. Also, just Denmark's a pretty small country, and the only shows that have been happening the last 2 years from us have been within Denmark. So we like nothing against the people that come to our shows in Denmark. Right, it's all great, but it's not really what we do this for. It's to get further out, get abroad, see new places.
Absolutely. And during the past couple of years too, when you were able to play live shows that were just in Denmark, you were able to build up that, your hometown audience, your home country audience, that local audience. Because Denmark is not the biggest country out there. So you're going to want to be able to expand outward into the rest of Europe, and then come across the Atlantic Ocean, come over here to the US and expand over here. And I totally understand that, but the importance of building up that local audience, that, hometown, that home country audience is important as well, because it helps get the word out around the band. It helps get people to listen to the band, because now you have a fever amount of fans that are going to be feverishly just talking about the band online, that are going to be constantly referring the band to their friends all across the world. So it helps to build up that base. So then when you go out other places, you can just, instead of trying to build a whole different fan base, you're basically just expanding on what you had at home.
Yeah. And we definitely knew we love playing at home. And I think we've actually refocused a little bit these last couple of years to actually maybe try, because we've been active for quite a few years, and we've released 2 albums. And we sort of gave up on building an audience in our home country pretty early, and focused a lot on especially the UK. Because that's where we seem to just honestly get more of a response. I would say our impression of the Danish metal scene is that, it's pretty small, it's leaning pretty, conservative, and we're sort of a weird, alt prog metal band, right? So we didn't really feel like there was much of an audience for what we do. But I think we're seeing some positive results. We're doing a full Danish run as well, so we'll get it covered pretty thoroughly, and then try to expand beyond the Danish borders.
No, I totally understand what you're saying too, because after listening to the Hindsight Notes and listening to the rest of your music catalog as well, when it comes to your style of metal, I totally understand what you're talking about, where when you're looking at, the Scandinavian countries, looking at Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, the type of metal that's really popular in that area is a little bit heavier, but also more conservative than what you would expect in terms of, classic heavy metal, maybe some like death metal, that sort of stuff around there. So with you guys going with more of this progressive metal, this, potential alternative influence in there that pops up, and especially on the Hindsight Notes, pops up a lot, I can see where you'd want to potentially go and try and build a fan base in other areas as well, because your music just ends up being there. You're basically following the crowd. If whoever's like your music, we're going to follow them there. But then really being able to refocus and focus in on this local fan base that you have and build that up, that just adds more to it. So when you guys end up you're playing these shows at home in Denmark, all of a sudden everyone wants to come out and see your show, and you get this more potential intimate connection with your audience, because you have this different connection in terms of, you guys all are from here, you guys all grew up here, let's all have a good time at the show.
Yeah. But I think I agree with you, but it's also like we want to try and avoid, because Denmark's also, it's a small country, and there's like one major city, which is Copenhagen, where most of us live. And we don't want to be too much of a hometown band, right? We want to be a little picky about how much we play at home, because, people get tired of you there as well. And you get sort of taken for granted if you if you overplay, I would say. But again, these last 2 years we've just taken anything we've been offered, right?
And it's understandable too. What you want to do is you want to find that balance, and it seems like you did, starting out by focusing on your fans outside of your home country, so really focusing on the UK because that's where the band was really hitting. Then all of a sudden, over the past couple of years, because of the pandemic, the only shows you're really going to be able to play were hometown shows. So focusing on that, you're kind of leveling it back out, but you don't want to just tip the scales too much. You want to find that happy medium to where when you play hometown shows, people want to come and see you because they like the music. Also, they have that connection because you're all from the same place. However, you want to be able to expand further outward so that you don't feel like you're saturated in Denmark, or you don't feel like you're, not really growing outside. You want to make sure that you continue to grow the band and bring your music to more and more people as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely. And also, it's just, it's the carrot, right? This is for us doing this is, just the sheer, ego boost of, let's say someone being booked by someone in Switzerland you've never met to go and play music you wrote yourself for strangers. That's just still so bizarre to me that we can actually get away with that, right? That's as an example of something like somewhere we've had good experiences going, right? And I remember a few years ago, actually right before the pandemic, we played our first show ever in the Netherlands, and we didn't really know what to expect. It was like a small 2-day festival. There were some pretty cool bands there, actually. I think Night Versus from the US were headlining, if you're familiar with them.
I am.
Yeah, so really solid lineup. And we played at 3 in the afternoon. Didn't really know what to expect. And there was it wasn't a huge room, but there was it was filled. And people knew the songs, right? Not everyone, but some of them. So we just went nuts because it was such a pleasant surprise, right? So those types of experiences, it's not every show we play abroad, definitely, but that's why that's always the thing we're hoping for, right? That's what keeps us going.
Oh, absolutely. You're always hoping for that one moment where you get to go out on stage and you're not necessarily sure what to expect, and then you look outside and the whole entire room is packed. People are singing along to the songs, and you're just sitting there thinking, whoa, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's always bizarre to me.
I think it's going to be it's bizarre to anybody, with the fact that at times when you first started out, your first concert you played or the first show you played, you may have played only in front of a couple people. You may have only played in front of some family and friends. But as time goes on, as you continue to work on your dream of making music and doing what makes you happy, also really letting other people connect with your music and having them learn some more things about themselves while listening to your music, connecting with it in such a positive way where you go out on stage and there are people from all over the place, from Denmark, from other different countries that you go and visit. People will come and visit, over to Europe, and all of a sudden they get to see your band. You never know. At that festival you played with all those people that were there, there might have been a couple people from the United States that specifically came over for that festival and found out about you guys for the first time on something like that and connected with you so positively that they might be just, foaming at the mouth waiting for February 4th when the Hindsight Notes comes out. They're probably waiting for this stuff right now. And it's all because you just kept working at it. You just kept going at it and kept connecting with people along the way.
Yeah, definitely. It's always fun. The fun to see if there's people that actually stick around where you find out they saw you at one particular thing, right? Because we're still at a level where our crowd isn't that huge. When we look at our platforms, we of course want to grow it, but you still notice people that reoccur or mention one specific show they picked you up at, right? And that it's just it's bizarre to me that or not bizarre, but I just don't see it myself. The fact that someone would pick up on what we do and connect with it in a way that brings us actually a dedicated following in some cases, right? That's it's pretty wondrous. But you also you have to be careful, because you do take it a little. You can sort of fall into a trap of, as soon as you've checked off something as a band that you wanted to do, at least for me, you you sort of take it for granted, and you don't really see. I don't tend to not be that good at just being content with the achievements once they're behind us, right? So it's not really that big of a deal that we did something that was really cool at the time, right? Or something we would have loved to do, or would have thought that was like. For example, we played in Milan, Italy, a few years ago we played with Whitechapel, and that was sort of a fun pairing, right?
Yeah.
But just sort of looking back at it, you sort of almost forget about, oh yeah, how the hell did that happen, right? Pretty cool experience. So it's stuff like that we want to get back to, cross more stuff off the list, even stuff we didn't know were on the list, right?
Well, I understand that. You want to have those moments where you have those things you want to do, you have those experiences you want to have as a band, you have those shows you want to play as a band, and you kind of have the list out there, and you start checking off the list of, okay, I want to play with this band, we want to play here, do all these different things. Even for the podcast itself with myself, that I've got a list of artists that's like I would love to have them on the podcast, and it's going to be cool to see a time where all of a sudden I check them off. But then I think about some of the ones I've had on, and like, I became fans of these bands since I started doing this, and now I've had them on here. Like, that's a cool thing to remember and check off. And it helps where, I still want to, get to that one point, but it's also cool to reflect back and see how far I've actually, similar to your band as well, where you're taking a look at all the things you want to do, all the things you want to accomplish, but then you're able to potentially take a step back, look back, and reflect on, hey, we played with Whitechapel Milan. Remember how cool that was? It's all about being able to put everything in a perspective to where you want to be able to move forward and you want to be able to just keep growing and growing, but also being able to appreciate everything you've done so far and be able to reflect back and put the proper amount of weight and put the proper amount of just, I'm trying to think of another great way to put it, the proper amount of
significance.
Yes, proper amount of significance on what actually happened and putting into context when it happened. Using the one with Whitechapel. I mean, Whitechapel is a rather large band, not going to lie. And being able to play with them a couple of years ago, right now it's like, yeah, that happened a couple of years ago. So it doesn't have as much significance now when you think about it, and because it's happened a little bit a while ago, but when you put it back into the context of when you guys actually did it, how much it meant to you, the significance begins to increase once again, so that you really appreciate the things that you've done, so you can further appreciate where you're going to end up going as you continue your career.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, I remember, it doesn't, like, it's a few years ago now, but it doesn't feel like that long ago. I was wondering, well, it would be cool to get to do like a full-length album at some point, because that I hadn't done that, and that's that was obviously before this band, but that's just like, now I've done two, and like the last one is even like, it's a year and a half since I actually recorded the drums, right? So it feels like, it just feels like, of course, that's that's what I do now, right? And it's good to reflect on that, because you take it for granted if you just of course you want to forge ahead and set new goals, right? But you have to, I think there's been a lot of time to reflect these last couple of years with why, when you're missing all the stuff you used to take for granted, right? So try to learn from that.
Oh, absolutely. And then now jumping into the new album, the Hindsight Notes. Yeah. Honestly, just the name of it, with how we're talking and with everything that's happened over the past couple of years, even with the fact that you guys are ready to, had this all completely ready to go in December of 2020, everything that's happened over the past 13 months as well. Yeah. This seems like it's just like the perfect microcosm of everything, due to take a look at, hindsight. You're looking back and you're learning from the past. So when you guys were completing this in December of 2020, we had 9 months of the pandemic where everything was shut down. We had no idea when live music was come back. We had no idea when anything was going to come back to normal. And then over the past 13 months while you've been waiting on it, honestly, after listening to it, the album, especially with its themes, seems so much stronger based on just waiting those 13 months playing it conservatively, because of how powerful everything has influenced us, how everything has happened, especially worldwide with the pandemic. Since, you guys were completed with this, ready to roll within December of 2020.
Yeah, or 21. I don't know if it's, So 1 year ago, right? That's, I guess that was December 2020. I'm bad with, I just got it right in my head. Yeah, but completely, like, and I'm still, I've sat with it with, like, before that we spent a long time writing it, then 6 months or so recording and producing it, and we've sat with it for a year now, creating music videos, and I'm not sick of the songs yet, so I think that's a pretty good sign. Because I remember for the previous album, we did one in 2018 called Fervor. I remember even as I was recording the album, some of the songs, my feeling was sort of like, they were filler. I was thinking, all right, I'll never play this song again, and that's fine. That's just, I that wasn't the whole album, right? But there were songs that just didn't speak to me, and that's not really the case with this one. And I know that's such a cliche. Because you're always most excited about the new stuff, right? But I feel like it's different. And I also feel like we were more thorough when writing this. And we also threw out some really good stuff writing this, because, it had to be the correct statements, right? It had to make sense in the context of, the whole collection of songs.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I understand what you're talking about, where when you're recording the last one, there's some songs you just didn't fully connect with, and that happens. That happens to everybody. That's not something that's going to be just unique to you. Anybody in the music industry, when you're recording things, you might not connect with the song that you end up writing as much as you did when you wrote it, so it's not going to have a potential full feel. And of course, with you guys, working on this one, have been working on it for quite some time, being able to still connect with every single song that you've worked with. And I think a lot of that has to do with the underlying theme and everything we've gone through in the past 2 years, and how this album has even, like I said, has grown in significance from the meaning just based on what's happened since you were done with it and sent it and up till its release. Because so many things have happened that, we're still looking back. We're still trying to learn from the past, from everything, and potentially trying to learn from, okay, maybe some misconnections, maybe some different things, problems we're having with, family, friends, ourselves, everything around that. It's a huge reflection moment. And we are still going through that because of everything that is happening over the past 2 years. All the different changes we've seen, all the different impacts it's had on us as people, as a society, as an entire world, all the impacts that it's had. That's why I think you're not tired of this album, because there's so many different connection points in every single song that's there, that it's really hard to just not feel the emotion behind it and not understand where these songs are coming from. So you listen to them, you play them, you're going to feel them every single time.
Yeah, I still do, man. But yeah, good to hear that you see something in it as well. Yeah, because it's sort of funny, because it's not really, especially lyrically, it was mostly wrapped up, a lot of it, before or just at the start of the pandemic, where we didn't really know how bad it was going to get, right? So thematically, it's not really about the whole shit show of the last couple of years, but looking at it, it's not. I was doing another interview yesterday, and we were talking about it's really not a very metal theme, because it's basically about growing up and maturing, lyrically, but and about it's a really personal record, so there's a lot of like personal stories that went into it, but it's also about learning from that and getting by, and keeping keep moving forward, right, and doing what you can with the baggage you come with. And there's been a lot of that. Trying to accept what you can't change and what you have to go without, whether it's big things or small things, these last couple of years, for everyone globally, which is obviously pretty unique.
Oh, it's absolutely unique. And I think the biggest reason why, I keep talking about some stuff stuff that's happened over the past years and reflecting on this album, even though a lot of it that might not have been rooted in that. But if you think about it, when you look at the base of it, you said growing up, reflecting, and learning to, move forward with things that you can't control and focus on the things that you can control and influence, and figuring out, maybe where you went wrong on certain things, growing up, learning from those experiences, potentially how to move forward from or make them right. When we take a look at what's happened during the pandemic as well, of course, I related to it because that's what we've been going through the past 2 years. But when you take a look at the core meaning of these songs, the core emotion of the album, it all boils down to that theme of reflection, growing up, and moving forward. It all reflects on that, maturing in a way. So, of course, that's why I think a lot of people are going to connect. A lot of people are really feeling it because we've done so much over the past 2 years. Even when it was written, it really wasn't written for that purpose. But just based on the way the world works and based on how our mind works, this album will end up having more of a timeless feel to it based off of something like that.
Yeah, I hope that definitely. That's of course that should be the ambition, right? But obviously, I didn't write the lyrics, but we've talked a lot about it, and obviously, since a lot of it's quite personal, we know a lot about the background. And there's been what the hell was my point? Yeah, it's if you want to make something really personal, if you do it well, you can make that. It should be kind of universal because we're not that different in terms of what we worry about, what we're concerned with, how we compare ourselves to others, right? And what we want to achieve. It might be different things, but the mechanics of it, how you deal with setbacks or positive changes, right? If you make it personal and you're honest about it, it can be pretty universal and hopefully meaningful.
I totally agree with you there. If you're able to make it personal and put a lot of the things that you went through in there while not going, overly specific on it, because you go overly specific, especially with the meaning of the lyrics, the issue comes with, unless you went exactly through the exact same thing, you're not going to be able to relate to it. But if you use more metaphors on it and really go personal on it, what happens is, as a listener, from my perspective, I end up boiling it down to what's the base emotion, what's the core emotion, what's the core message of the song. But when it comes to it, then all of a sudden, as I'm listening to it, and I understand that emotion, I understand that feeling, I end up putting more of myself and what I went through into the song, so that I relate to it in a completely different way than whoever wrote it, than you do as well, because we've all gone through different things in life. We've all experienced different things, but we all know what that emotion, we all know what that feeling feels like. That's at the core of the song. So that's how everything connects, and that's how it makes it universal. That's how I always look at it.
Yeah, definitely. It came through. There was a lot of turbulence in our lives, and we've sort of, been this whole project. It's the band and the record has sort of been a stabilizing force. I think for some of us, it's kind of a nice constant to have, that you have these, these dudes that you owe them your time and your commitment, right? Because you said you'd see this through, and we'd make something good together, right? Yes, that's been really good to lean against.
And even like from another perspective, while also still working with bands like yourself as well, from my end, during this whole entire pandemic period, as well as when I really started interviewing artists for a podcast, and it has brought a little bit of a sense of normalcy, because I get to talk to people about music, I talk to people about their music, what they love about it, what they're passionate about it, and really go deep into some of the songs and some of the albums that they make as well, like I would do if I was at a concert and just talking with random people about music and just having a great time. But of course, in 2020, that got taken away from, so this was like my semblance of normalcy for a while. Then all of a sudden, concerts started coming back, and well, I kind of merged the two together. So it's just like, yay, woohoo, this is awesome.
Yeah, you got some new perspectives, right? Yeah, but so concerts they're fully back in the US. I'm guessing there's differences between states.
So just from what I understand right now, the way it is concerts pretty much are fully back. The difference between states is just the different sort of restrictions that are in place when it comes to attending them. There are some places that still require masks. There are some places that require proof of vaccination. There are some places that don't. It all depends upon not just the state, but also the city and the venue itself. So it's kind of like anytime I go to a concert, I have to check up and see exactly what is required of me to go to the show. So usually what I do is I just play it safe. It's like, if I'm going to a show, I'll go to a show. But I'll have in my pockets, I'll have the vaccination record with me. I'll have a mask with me. So if all of a sudden I go there, it's like, okay, you need this and this and this, I've got it covered. If I don't need it, who cares? I still have it if I needed it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've all learned to know where. I don't know if that's a saying in English, but in Danish we say belt and suspenders, right? Better safe than sorry. You don't want to miss out on the cool show because you thought you could get by with less.
Pretty much, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, even sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, and just myself as a concert goer as well. I'm just not taking anything for granted, right? I have tickets to see. You have a band called Cult of Luna from Sweden.
Don't listen, but I have heard of them.
Like a post, they're really good. And then I'm seeing. I have tickets for Tool in April as well here in Denmark.
Nice.
So right now I'm really anxious to see if that'll happen at all, right? So yeah, definitely not taking it for granted if I actually get to go. That's we'll see.
Oh, absolutely. If you get a chance to go, don't take it for granted, especially what we all experienced over the past couple of years. Because even for myself as well, it's once I saw live shows were coming back, I told myself, okay, don't go too crazy. Don't, spend way too much money on live shows. Even though I know you love them, don't do it. Right after I said that, I thought to myself, I'm definitely not going to listen to that. Like, this is, like, I'm not taking this for granted. This is what I love to do. This is where I love to be. So, back in, I think it was September and October of 2021, it was not weird for me to go to 2 or 3 shows a week. It's just there were so many shows that were happening. I didn't want to miss out on them. So I'm like, okay, go here, go here, go here. All of a sudden, when April in 2022 rolls around, it's like within the span of like 10 days, I can go see Amity Affliction. I can go see Ice Nine Kills Emotions in White twice. I can go and see Fozzy. I can go and see Polaris and like Moss to Flames. This is all in the span of 10 days. It's just, I know what 2020 was like. I know what the beginning of 2021 was like. There is no way I'm taking this for granted, even if I have to travel, 100 plus miles to see a couple of these shows. I'm making it happen because I'm not taking this for granted. And when it comes to your end as well, not only seeing live shows, but playing live shows, we all went through so many different things. And especially taking a look at the hindsight notes, you're able to potentially use those songs to reflect back and remember how much of an importance those things had on your life, how much importance you had of a connection to those live shows. And you don't want to take it for granted because you know how important they were. You know what it was like to not have them. So when you go out and play there, you're going to be able to remember that and appreciate it a lot more than, you potentially would have back in 2019.
Yeah, definitely. This summer, when shows were like fully non-restricted in Denmark, I did a lot of like session drumming stuff because I just got asked by some friends. And I just, shows are fucking back, right? So I'm just going to say yes to everything. So I had like 2 months where I was either rehearsing or playing shows every weekend and, doing my day job in between. And it was just completely stressful, but I was just sort of like, I don't even care. I'll just be a bit asocial and unwind when I can, right? Because I've gone without for so long. I'm just gonna appreciate it while it's here. Because we've had like the past few years, we've played some shows, but we've also had a couple of occasions where we've spent quite a bit of time preparing for some shows that we were really looking forward to. And then just this November, right, we were supposed to go to Germany and the Netherlands, and it was cancelled with a week's notice. And we'd spent, we were completely ready, booked the van, the crew. We even we bought airline tickets for our lighting engineer so he could fly to a show in Holland, because to make all the different logistics work, and then we've spent all that effort and it just falls apart. Yeah, so if it actually, when we're actually on stage again, we're not taking it for granted. That's I think we're way beyond that.
Oh, I think you guys are way beyond that as well. And there was one thing you were talking about back, like you were talking about 2021, where not where you guys playing shows, but also you're doing a lot of different session drumming, helping out other people, and going to see shows as well, not taking it for granted. Yeah, you got your day job. I had the exact same thing as well, where it's like, okay, so I got the day job to, help support this as well, do this. I want to go see shows. So seeing my friends and whatnot, seeing some family, yeah, that kind of took a hit a little bit. But one thing I always remember is I remember what it was like to not have those things, and so do you. And yeah, I'm going to potentially be tired. I might be a little cranky at times because of how much energy I'm putting into some of these things. So I'm not getting the proper amount of sleep, not getting the proper amount of rest. But I take a look at like what I did in September of 2021, where it was like every single weekend I was I had a 6-week stretch where it was, okay, festival 1 week, festival over 1,000 miles away the next week. Also, I'm traveling over the place the next 2 weeks because I can't stop seeing that Ice Nine Kills tour. Go see Ice Nine Kills 100 miles south of me. Then all of a sudden go 100 miles north of me the next day because my buddy has a bachelor party, go to his wedding the next weekend, go to another show before another friend's wedding the next week, break my finger in the middle of the show, continue to mosh because I don't want to miss out on this, and then go to my friend's wedding, and all of a sudden it's like, well, why is your pinky finger like half the size or twice the size of the other one? Well, it's broken, so what are you gonna do about it? But I look back and I just think about all the fun times that I had and how happy I was because as I get older, I'm going to look back at that time and know I did not miss out on anything, that I did what I wanted to do, that I didn't take anything for granted, and I have some of the best memories that I have, especially coming out of a pandemic. Like, I don't want to miss out on that. I don't take it for granted, and especially with the way you said it, I know you don't as well. So, especially going forward in 2022 and beyond, especially with the use of the Hindsight Notes, you're just going to appreciate every little aspect of it, and I feel like this is going to potentially be the best release that you guys ever have, just due to that understanding of appreciation for everything.
Definitely. I think, of course, commercially you never know, right? But it's looking better than the last records already. So let's see. But, just in terms of our own satisfaction, we really feel like we've nothing left to prove. I'm sort of like, man, I hope you like it. I've never been as content with something. There's always compromises, right? But at least like everything, we're really collaborative in our process when we write. So even though someone might have the main idea, be the main songwriter, there's not, I would say most notes that's played on this album has had everyone's opinion heard about them at some point, right? And, our singer has written 20 versions of the same verse or chorus with a lot of the songs, because either he wasn't satisfied or someone gave him some feedback, and we tried to take let our guard down a bit and just agree that we can be honest and we can tell each other if stuff isn't good enough, and then we know it's all because we want to do the best we can as a collective, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, how about we jump into some of these songs and talk about them a little bit, because there are some things, like whenever I go through an album, I will always go through it as deep as I possibly can. First off, listen to the whole entire thing, then listen to each song, try and find the lyrics if I can. If not, listen as intently as I can to figure out what I think the meaning is. Then I listen to each one probably, it seems like 6 or 7 times to figure out what I think about the instrumentals, the vocals, then wrap up an overall. So then I get a final thought of what I think of the whole entire album, put it all together. I'm looking at like a Microsoft Word document right now with how my notes. It's 19 pages long for this album alone. So I did not want to skip on anything. And the first thing I want to do is like, okay, I'll take a look at the things that I put as my like what I really liked about this album, man. I want to go to the 6th track on the album, specifically called Nostalgic, because of course you look at the title of it, it's like, okay, everyone has such a strong feeling of nostalgia, especially as of late during the pandemic, because always looking back at things that you remember, from your younger years, maybe when you were a kid, that always brought you joy and happiness. You always have that sort of different connection to it of always having a more positive feel around it. And I was listening to the song, the instrumentals stuck out to me for the specific of I'm listening to them, and it sounded like it was the most, out of this album, the track that was the most inspired by nu metal.
Oh, I haven't thought of that. I don't mind the comparison, but nu metal wise, I wouldn't say we were conscious of it. Obviously, we have that age where we all, started out with Limp Bizkit, right, and then progressed to other things that are more, acceptable. In the metal community, but yeah, cool, man. That's new, but that's one of the ones where I mentioned. I think there were 20 versions of both the first and the second verse, and also the chorus. Our singer really, because it's really heavy and it's really bouncy, but we didn't want to do the scream during the verse, go overly poppy on the chorus, right? So, and it was just, we really workshopped that one a lot, man. That's but I'm glad you like it. It's one of my favorites.
As I could easily tell, there was a lot of work put into this, but where the like just looking at the song, the way that it like, especially it's called nostalgia. You take a look at the meaning, it's gonna really look into the whole entire idea of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But looking at it when I was listening, like I could totally tell like it wasn't like a full conscious thing to really put in like this whole new metal like interpretation there. But all the instrumentals had this certain flow with new metal, and I'm not gonna lie, I was rather impressed by it for the fact that you take a look at new metal back in, the late 90s, early 2000s. It was the most popular genre of metal out there with bands like Disturbed, Slipknot, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, all over the place. All of a sudden, as you got into the mid 2000s, late 2000s, it really fell off and it became sort of this thing where, oh, you like new metal? Oh, no, it's bad kind of thing. And it became less of an acceptable thing. All of a sudden, here comes 2021, which absolutely amazed me with the fact that Limp Bizkit came out with a new album, and people were psyched about it. They had this whole entire headlining run. They only played, I think, 5 dates for it, and they had Spirit Box opening for them, and people wanted to go out and see Limp Bizkit. They headlined Lollapalooza in Chicago. They headlined Rockfest up in Wisconsin, a show I actually got to go and see, so I can say I saw Limp Bizkit live, and you're seeing more new metal influences pop into different areas of, different styles of metal, whether it's progressive metal, metalcore, heavy metal, whatever it might be. And I take a look at that and think people are kind of having more of this nostalgic look back at new metal and really remembering all the things they actually liked about it. And now it's kind of having this sort of rebirth because of that. Taking a look at how nostalgic is built, especially with having more of that flow in new metal, especially with the way the guitars and the bass kind of chug, but not too heavily chug. The drums, kind of having more of like a quick little flair to them as well in the new metal style. I was sitting here thinking, are you kidding me? Especially now hearing that you guys, were writing this stuff and had it all pretty much completed in 2020, and then seeing how 2021 turned out, especially with kind of the resurgence in new metal. Are you guys future tellers or something? Because my God, this one was the one that just stuck out to me the most in that aspect. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is fantastic.
Well, I'll be happy to catch the nostalgia wave, right? To get on that train if possible. Yeah, but it's just the first time I've heard it, but it's it's cool. It's good to hear that people can appreciate the different sort of nods that are to all of the genres, because we can be pretty self-critical about what we want stuff to sound like, and in the end it's good to have it appreciated by and interpreted in a completely different way by others, right? But it's funny you mention it, because it's actually, if you look at the lyrics of the song, this is one of sort of the lighter subjects on the record, because as I said before, and this is it's all said with love, because it's where we come from, the same scene. But we are part of a really small metal scene here in Denmark, and it's leaning pretty conservative. No one's gonna yell at you if you play, death metal or something more, traditional. But if you're sort of a weird band that might put a saxophone solo and stuff, or have weird breakdowns in odd time signatures, you get some you can get some crude comments thrown your way every once in a while. And it's basically, we wrote this, and it's like, oh, we finally wrote a proper metal song. So the lyrics are basically about try and ease up a bit. It's lighten up a bit. It's just music, right? Hopefully it's good, but not getting too caught up on dogmas and genres in that regard. So it's personal, but it's on the lighter side of the lyrical topics. So that's where the title comes from. It's about, it's fair enough to be nostalgic and have preferences, but it's not life or death.
Exactly. And like, even take a look at kind of like when I was making the connection with new metal as well, where again, everyone was taking it so seriously and like absolutely not liking it around, let's say 2008, 2009. All of a sudden now it's got that resurgence, and people are taking it less serious and enjoying it for what it's worth, because hell, look how many people love Disturbed. Look how many people love Slipknot. Take a look at all the people that came out to see Limp Bizkit now that Fred Durst is like 47, 48 years old and is looking like he's a full-on dad just going out there. It's funny to watch, I'm not going to lie, but you're seeing a lot of that come forward, and you're seeing a lot of that appreciation come forward, and it really kind of just makes sense, especially with this being more of like, especially lyrically, a lighter subject matter compared to the rest of the album.
But and also with it's cyclical, right? So like in 5 years, there's going to be a huge nostalgia for, the Machine Head, and of course Trivium and Machine Head are still around, but that sort of era of bands that got really huge after new metal. Of course, Machine Head started up a bit earlier, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just going to be nostalgia for something else, right? So it's just enjoy what you enjoy.
And you're, well, even not only that, but like going to a different subgenre of rock, like you're taking a look at this massive nostalgia driven just resurgence of emo music over the past 2 to 3 years. It's massive. And I'll put it this way, it doesn't hurt with the return of My Chemical Romance. It does not hurt with that at all. But I remember, back, 2006, 2007, I was going through middle school at the time. I remember how big it was. I remember how insane people were getting over it. All of a sudden, My Chemical Romance kind of calls it quits around like 2012, 2013, and the whole entire thing basically dies, and no one wants to even be associated with it. Now, there's times I'll go out here in my hometown, Milwaukee, and there's a thing called Sad Boy Saturday, where a DJ will just show up at a bar, and they play the alternative 2000s and emos music all night. The place is packed all the time with people, and they're singing the words to every single song, just like they did back in 2006 and 2007. The nostalgia factor is so strong there, and it is very cyclical. So not gonna lie, I'm looking forward to 9-10 years down the line, especially with that first real big boom of metalcore when that nostalgia kicks in. Because I absolutely love metalcore, so that's gonna be something I'm ready for.
Yeah, I'll say that's sort of a genre that, I was, as a teenager, I think I overdid it a little. So I can't really listen too much to a lot of that stuff. I still like Trivium, but yeah.
Understandable. Another song I do want to jump into, because you did mention it with the saxophone solo, because that was one thing that really the saxophone solo in No Connection, because I have heard bands put in saxophone solos in songs before. The most recent one I remember was the band Chunk No Captain Chunk on their album Gone Are the Good Days, which came out in 2021, because I had Bert on the podcast, and he's like, there's a surprise for you on the album, and I listened to the whole entire thing, and that was the surprise. And it is insane hearing how something like that can come up. So I have to ask, when it came to the saxophone solo, what was the idea behind putting it in No Connection? Because it is wacky.
I'm so happy you asked. It was my idea, so that's and I fought for it. Basically, the song was that's the whole story of we wrote the song, spent a lot of time on that, and that was this exact same structure, but without the solo. So there was like a break, and there was like a big boomy part before it goes back to the chorus. And I just kept hearing a solo of sorts, and I really, I've enjoyed a few more proggy records. If you're familiar with Isan, the Emperor frontman, he did a record with a lot of saxophone on it. But it's not really, I didn't want to make it too, fusiony. I wanted something that was, a bit over the top and a little fun, but still, good. So I just had I just heard mentally, with just writing that break, that there needed to be some like crazy run, and then ending up in like a big, drawn out, really joyous saxophone solo, because it's sort of winking at you a little bit. It's a little tongue in cheek, but it fucking works. But I really fought for that. And we found a really good session guy, and we took him to the studios. There were 3 of us from the band and the engineer there, and he just nailed one take of it. And I have the recording somewhere where the camera's in the control room with him, so you can just barely hear some background noise. Otherwise, it's only the saxophone you hear, right? So he nails like the first take, and then you can just far away in the background from the control room hear all of us just going, just laughing and high-fiving, because it just fucking worked at the first. I think he did 3 takes, and then he had the solo as you heard on the album with a few overdubs, and that was I'm glad it came out that way.
No, after listening to the song too, because it was like when I went through my list, like what I like about the album, this was the first thing that I put on the list. And looking at the song and No Connection, right from the get-go, it's like you're looking at like kind of, especially as I went through the lyrics myself, you know, kind of looking at this disconnection that we're having with people, with each other, due to the fact that, you know, take a look at what things happened over the past years, but everything that led up to it. So much interaction has been taking place online instead of in person, where you're not getting the full interaction with people. Because I believe the saying is 60% of what you're saying is based on just your body language, and 30% of what you're saying is based on your tone. So only 10% of what you're actually saying is from the words coming out of your mouth. And we're missing that full-on connection. So a lot of this different personal connection, a lot of these different intimate connections we might be making with people to build relationships with them is just not there anymore. And when I took a look at this, you know, I got to go to the bridge because you maintained the pace that you had in the chorus with a similar style of backing with a piano kind of added over it. And I'm like, okay, this is a little interesting with the piano because now I'm kind of starting to like not really make a full connection here. And then all of a sudden, this smooth transition into this saxophone solo. I was like thinking, as I wrote here, that solo was something that really stood out in the song to me because it you're not expecting it. It shows so much kind of this like part of disconnect in the song, but you're not expecting it. So that's where the disconnect comes from. And it fits so well in with the theme. And sometimes those surprises that in the songs that you've been waiting for, sometimes they turn out fantastic. And this was one that, you know, when I think about this album, when I think about it, one of the highlights I think about is that saxophone solo because it doesn't seem like it's going to make sense, but when you listen to it, it's placed in there so perfectly within the flow of the song to make everything make sense from this feeling of disconnection with people because you're not expecting it. All of a sudden, here it comes. It's like, wait, what? I was expecting that. Where's the connection in this? It's right there in front of you. It makes total sense to me, especially listening through it, listening to the emotions of the instrumentals. It's so damn powerful of a solo to have in there that people, I mean, the song is one of the singles from the album as well, so people can go and listen to it right now, but I don't want to spoil like the whole entire thing of the solo because, you know, it's awesome. Just go and listen to it. Listen to the whole song and just enjoy the saxophone solo when it comes in because, whoo, is it going to take you on a ride?
Yeah, glad, man. I just get a big dumb smile on my face for that one.
I wonder how are you guys going to pull this off when you play it live, though?
I think on occasions where there's a budget and it makes sense, we'll bring out a guy. Otherwise, it's going to be either backing track or without it, because, you know, we'd love to. But we always, if you listen to the album, right, we have so many session people on there. I think I counted 15 or something. So we'll need an orchestra to do it properly, right? So yeah, it's not fun to do too much backing stuff, but yeah, it's not gonna. We'll try and do it so it doesn't come off too cheesy with backing tracks, and then when there's a budget, we'll hire someone to come out and just do the solo.
I would say out of all the, because I totally understand the fact that you had a lot of people working in like as session musicians to help you out with this. And I do understand the fact that when it comes to a live set, you want to make it as real as possible and use the least amount of backing tracks. But sometimes using those backing tracks to make sure you make the full feel of that live show possible, you're going to have to do it. And you're not going to be able to have the budget to bring a full-on orchestra out to help you out here. But I will say with the saxophones, if a couple of times, maybe use it as a special thing where on a show that, you know, okay, we sold out this show, or on a show where you really feel like you're going to get the most, you know, notoriety off of a really special show. That's when you bring in someone to actually play that solo live, because it just, from a fan's perspective as well, and you can probably put yourself in my shoes as well. If I'm in the crowd and all of a sudden I'm enjoying the song and I know the saxophone solo is coming up, and then out comes someone with a saxophone and they play the full solo, that's just going to be something that when I go home from that show and I wake up the next day and I'm thinking about the show, that's going to be the thing that sticks out in my head the most, is going to be the fact that there was somebody that came out and played that saxophone solo live and just made that song so much more impactful because we got to feel the actual presence of it in a live setting. Yeah,
definitely. I'll be a huge fan of that. But I want to do as much as possible of that. Of course, you have to care a little bit about the financial right, but I almost don't care if we make money. Like I want to bring, you know, a piano player as well and a synth guy if we can, because, you know, we're just the 4 guys in the band, so obviously anyone else is there on a session basis. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But that's a huge ambition of us to put on some more special shows, because it also, you know, it's fun. I like the I'm not a huge fan of recording normally, but this record was different because we brought in so many people and we were so much in control still. Just like we sort of had the four of us that were sort of like the creative core of the band, and we're in charge. We decide, but we wanted to sound good, right? And if we get an idea, we don't want to be limited just by the skills that we have. We want to bring in, so we want to bring in someone that can actually bring it to life. So we had sort of a dogma that you know, there's a lot of synths on the record, but anything that is supposed to be an analog instrument, actually that was played by a person. So, you know, the piano is played by a pianist, the cello is played by a cellist, the violins by a violinist. There's a trumpet in there as well, and obviously a choir. It's hard to replicate with MIDI, so we had to bring in that as well. It was a lot of work, but I just love the whole collaborative aspect of it, and also just getting to play with people that are better than us, right? Because all of the session musicians could play their instruments way better than any of us can play ours. So that's always a good occasion to be humbled a bit.
Honestly, there was one thing you said in there that sticks out to me the most, and it's something that I think a lot of musicians and pretty much anybody if you're working on something you're passionate about, whatever it might be, what you said in there was, when you guys have an idea, you're going to make that idea happen. You're not going to let anything restrict you from making it happen. So when it comes to, you know, wanting to add the piano in there, add the violin, the cello, adding that chorus there, adding the saxophone solo in there, you have an idea for it and you want to make it happen, but you're just four guys and none of you play any of those instruments, but you want to put it in there. You're going to find a way to make sure that happens, so that when you play that song on the record, and all of a sudden when it comes on a live setting, you know, those parts are in there, whether, especially in a live setting, if you're going to end up having someone come and play it live, or if you're going to have to play it as a backing track, whatever it might be, but you're going to want to make that song work the way you want it to work. You're not going to let any restriction be put in place because, oh, I'm just not the person that's going to be able to play saxophone. Well, go out and find someone that can and make what you want to have happen. Make that happen. Don't be sitting on the sidelines just because, oh, we weren't sure if we could make this happen or not. No. Go for it. Why not go for it? Because what the worst thing that can happen is you try it and it doesn't work. But at least you know that it doesn't work. If you try it and it works, oh man, now you've got a saxophone solo in there and it's freaking awesome. But if you don't try it all, you're always going to end up wondering, why would it have worked? I don't know, but you're always going to have that wonderment. And trust me, the wondering and not knowing is worse than knowing if it's going to be a no or a yes.
Yeah, and I would say a small add to that from my side would be to try it, but also would be to go all in. Just like, don't just get anyone to play a saxophone solo. The guy we got, he's like a professional who does jazz gigs. He plays with huge pop artists here in Denmark. Like the guy we got to mix is like the leading Danish metal producer. He's mixed and produced a ton of huge bands. So I was like, we're not gonna spend a year and a half writing something we think is cool and then compromise on the product, right? Then we'd rather just not do it. So that was sort of a guiding principle, and it drove up the budget, but we'll see how we get out of that with the release, right?
No, absolutely. And I think the best way to probably put that is, do not compromise on quality. If you want to make it, make it the best that you can. If, you know, with that saxophone solo, don't get any person that's going to play saxophone. Get someone who's going to absolutely nail it so it comes out the exact way that you want it to come out. Make it happen that way. Don't sit back and just think, oh, you know, we can find someone to make it happen. No. If you want to make it happen, go all in and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that was sort of the mantra.
Absolutely. The one other song I do want to bring up is the third song on the record, called Verism, because only reason I want to bring that up is because out of all the songs that I heard on the album, Verism is without a doubt my favorite.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That's actually, I wouldn't say it's not technically the oldest song, but like the theme on it, you know, the main theme is like 10 years old, I think. Our guitarist I think he was on vacation in Iceland or something when he wrote that, and he's had it lying around forever, sort of the main part of the verse and the chorus. And we finally finished it. But that's I'm really happy with that. I think he's a little overly critical of his own stuff sometimes. So he was sitting on it. Wasn't too sure it was good enough. But it ended up being a single, and I would say for good reason, right?
Oh, absolutely, for good reason. I think potentially even kind of being critical for it that long and just kind of waiting on it for you guys to finally put together. There were certain aspects that I pulled out of the song that really opened up in a very interesting way that had you guys ended with your guitars basically creating this thing 10 years ago and then being overcritical about it, and then you guys finally put it out now. Within those 10 years, there were some aspects and influences that I was able to pick up on that really made this song flow as well as it did and make it even more powerful as it did. Because I even start out with the opening of the song, especially in the intro. There's some deeper cosmic electronics similar to the openings of songs like Losing My Mind and Losing My Life by Falling in Reverse, which is a weird combination to throw in for you guys to kind of pique my interest on this. But I was like, I'm curious to see where you're going with this, because the electronic and futuristic tone of the song has me thinking that this might be more on the opposite, given this grander, heroic, more feel to deal with, on the future. And not just the simplicity of everyday life, because I did look up what Verism meant to also make sure I could understand what was going on here. And it's kind of because I looked at it with Verism, it's putting more of a focus on the everyday and just what's going on instead of just the heroic, the grand. So kind of enjoying the little things in life and making sure that is a thing. So I'm like, this is kind of a weird thing where all of a sudden I'm looking towards the future. It feels like a more grand thing. So where's this kind of coming in? All of a sudden, you get to the verses, the song has this deeper bass line, guitars are featured with those futures electronics over the top of the song. All the while, drums are in the back playing with kind of this filling style, good amount of double kicks on those fill. And I do really like how the instrumentals played out, because all of a sudden it felt similar to, and I'm going to throw another name there, Light the Torch. It felt similar to that to me as a way to recenter us, reminding the simple things in everyday life and not taking those little things for granted as we go on.
Well, that was I think a more comprehensive analysis than I've done even. But yeah, I'm really happy with that. You mentioned Limp Bizkit earlier. That I will say honestly, the first verse when the drums comes in, that was me very very consciously trying to sound a little like John Otto. I even tuned up my snare a bit in the studio to get a little bit more of that crack. But yeah. But that was actually, you mentioned the synths, right? And that was a big part of, again, work with the best, right? Because we wrote all the stuff and all the synths, but then we got in a guy called Ole. He was in a really successful pop act here in Denmark. He's a producer now, but we gave him all the synths we've written as MIDI, and he has this whole setup with all these crazy synths. So we got him to produce the whole stuff. Or the whole thing. He also did the previous record, and it was just a completely different beast when we got it back. So that, I think that really the production really sort of gave it new life. The ideas there, I'll say.
Oh, and honestly, it totally worked out in your favor on this one as well. Because especially with Verism, the biggest thing that I liked about the song overall was how every piece flowed together, and bringing some of those synths helped every piece kind of have this more connective feel. So then the instrumentals coming from you guys, the drums, the bass, the guitars, they had a little bit more of a pop to them, but everything felt like it went from one piece to the next so fluidly. Because even get to the chorus, I kind of got that Light the Torch influence again to really come through with your drumming style and with the bass line keeping up kind of a little more faster filling sound in the background. But the guitar is filling out the rest section to create something more grand and ever growing in terms of overall feel was something that I really hit on. Because you get to understand the fullness of your mind here when you find that balance of both understanding, where you want to go forward and finding those grand things and looking at them, but also enjoying the little things in life. We're seeing that connection through the flow here and the balance being made, especially in the chorus. So the only two words I can put to the end of that are just well done.
Thanks, man. Yeah. The chorus is definitely, I wouldn't say they improved necessarily. Oh, they improved as well, but they got bigger on this record, I feel.
Oh, they definitely did get bigger. And if your singer was here, I'd tell him on this song that his vocal style, it kind of reminded me a mix of both Howard Jones from Light Torch, Sammy Hagar from Van Halen with a Danish accent. I don't know how it just all flowed together, but it just stood out. So I love the mix on it because you get this hard rock meets progressive metal meets Light the Torch inspiration on the song. Gives us this growing emotion that we're not necessarily in balance with looking at the future and enjoying the little things in life. Just we're not in that balance. And if we're going to want to be happy, we have to find that balance. And the chorus, again, with how everything flows and hear a little more of a powerful vocal style from him in more of a melodic sense from the backing. Oh, dear God. It just hits on the notion that we're missing out on that. And we have to focus, on potentially some of the bigger and the heroic stuff, but also focus on the everyday stuff as well. So we find that balance so we don't get lost in the shuffle and we don't completely lose ourselves from that centermost, kind of Zen point in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's again, hadn't done the full analysis of how the lyrics combine with that, but I'm glad it makes sense to you, man. That's I'm really happy with how the track turned out. It was also really, I would say that's one of the, he obviously came in with the main idea, but that was also one of the tracks where we were quite collaborative in terms of everyone has spent quite a bit of time writing on that track based on the core idea. So it was a team effort.
Oh, absolute team effort, and a team effort that I think once it comes out, again, there are going to be people that like some of the heavier stuff that are going to look at this and be like, oh, there might not be as much heavier parts in here. But trust me, there are some parts where all of a sudden they bring the heaviness, they bring some of the unclean vocals. And when they do, you're just going to be sitting there thinking, they needed to put that in there. And it works. And it works.
Yeah, I feel the same. I come from sort of a more of a death metal background with the previous bands I've played in. So when I joined this band, it was just like, it was so refreshing to work with someone that could actually sing, with the whole dynamic range. And I've actually been pushing for Johanna Singer to scream less, even though the music I listen to a lot of the time is quite a bit heavier than what we do. But it's sort of like, I feel like if you have that dynamic range, then the heavy parts, the screaming or shouting parts, they pack more of a punch, right? If they're there for a reason and not just because that's the only thing you have to. That's the only tool in your tool belt, right? That's
exactly, because if that's the only tool in your tool belt, then you're going to be potentially very good at it, but it's going to limit you in terms of where you can go further than that. And sometimes, there are people that only have that one tool in their tool belt and they make the most of it, which is totally fine. You just have to find the right balance for yourself and for the band that you're working with.
I mean, Meshuggah is I think they're the best band in the universe, right? And they're sort of they're the best example of, they have sort of they're so innovative, it's a weird way to use, but they have sort of a limited set of colors that they paint with. And, in that case, that limitation brings a lot of creativity because they're constantly reinventing themselves. But I would say in my case, I just enjoy with this band that we can span we can span across so many dynamic levels of expression, right? There's like quiet, almost ballads. There's I don't think there's blast beats on this record, actually. Come to think of it,
I don't think you put any in there. I don't think you put any blast beats in there for this one.
But we had blast beats previously, but and I miss playing them, so maybe we should write some more. But
but you can always throw them in there. And then before I kind of bring this whole entire album thing to a close, because you're talking about Meshuggah, one other band that comes to mind with that is Breaking Benjamin, where if I listen to a Breaking Benjamin record, of course I know it's a Breaking Benjamin record, and I feel like they kind of paint with more of a limited color palette to really just full on force get their message out there. But it comes to a point where sometimes, even if you have more of a limited range where you can go with, if you can just focus on the range and make it the best possible, you can go so much further than you could ever imagine with it. All depends upon what you work with and how good you are working with it. If you have so many different other, aspects or different influences in your arsenal that you can put in your music, by all means do it. And all of a sudden, then we get a sax solo in there out of nowhere, and it absolutely works. It all depends upon what you want to make as a musician and how you're able to portray the message that you want to portray in your music through the vocals, through the instrumentals, and through the combination of the two.
Yeah, definitely. It's why limit yourself, right? That's or at least it's about being comfortable in what you're expressing and what you're creating with. Because I did some live drums this year. As I mentioned, one of them was for some friends of ours called Cabal, which is like a really dark, really heavy, groovy sort of deathcore band. Um, and it was just so much fun getting to play that because that's sort of like in terms of dynamics, it's all pretty brutal. It's not super fast stuff, but it's just really heavy, really slamming, and it's fun to play around with sort of more of a limited, uh, yeah, again, level of freedom in some cases because you can't I can't get away with the stuff there that I can with Cold Night For Alligators, but. In terms of this is of course this is our baby, our project, our pride and joy, right? We feel like we wanna show off all our good ideas, and our ideas they vary. they we were not thinking in the same lane all the time, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you guys are all thinking the same lane, you're going to get the same stuff over and over again. You guys think in completely different lanes, we're going to get something like this. So when it comes to the Hindsight Notes by Cold Night For Alligators, which comes out again on February 4th, if I had to wrap it up and put it all together, press release style, this is how I would put it for all of you. When it comes to Cold Night For Alligators being a progressive metal band with more of a forward-thinking approach, they open themselves up to incorporating many different styles of alternative indie rock, metal, rock, whatever you want to say of it, into their personal music. And on the Hindsight Notes, we definitely got that. They're able to use more electronics and a more softer tone on their instrumentals to create this idea of realization around what we have all gone through, even in the past years, even before the pandemic, to make us think of why we are this way, what made us think this way, and how do we go forward to fix it and grow from it. Johann's vocals also soared alongside of this, really bringing a mixture of energy and weightlessness to add to that realization aspect of the meaning of the album. The sax solo on No Connection stands out as a major plus for the album to show how the band can experiment with this forward-thinking style and allow it to soar. Verism flows so perfectly for you to remember what I say is Zombieland rule number 32 and enjoy the little things in life. Focusing on what could potentially be, not personally, but they actually did a kind of more of a new metal inspiration for nostalgic, works so well to connect us to why we miss the old, but why we can't focus on it too much. However, a lesser focus on some of the more metal aspects, some of the heavier aspects with unclean vocals attached to this makes them one more to ponder and that you could potentially have to take action against. However, we do get some of those points in there, so you are going to get a lot from this record that you might not potentially, ever expect to. You're going to want to check this one out. And if I had to make a little statement of, if you liked the most recent The Plot and You album, Swan Songs, check out the Hindsight Notes. This is going to be one where you're going to be able to see that ever-growing style, ever-growing connection. So if you like Swan Songs by The Plot and You, check out the Hindsight Notes by Cold Night For Alligators. That is the perfect comparison. And I'm not going to lie, I probably thought of that comparison maybe 2 minutes ago.
I just noted them down, so I'll check them out. I'm actually not familiar. I'll go the other way.
Yeah, just give it I'll put it with this way. Swan Songs, it's like, because I remember listening to Plot and You, and I had Landon, their lead singer, on the podcast. We talked about that album. I'm like, I'm seeing some different things come in here. He's like, well, I'm just trying to experiment with new things that I kind of find cool and just see what happens in there with his more, somewhat more kind of like partially progressive, but more metalcore style approach. And when I was listening to this one and kind of talk about it, all of a sudden my mind just kept going back to Swan Song. I'm like, okay, let's go back to, let's see what, the Plot and You had. And all of a sudden, now I'm thinking about, I'm like, this is the perfect comparison. So if people, and I know people really like that album from 2021. So if you like that album, why not try out the Hindsight Notes by Cold Night For Alligators? I think it's a great transition, and I think it's a great way to continue on. Also, get into Cold Night For Alligators as well, so that when they are able to tour, if you're in Europe, or if they do want to come over to the US, or if you want to be like me and travel over to Europe and see a bunch of these bands as well, this is one to check out.
Oh, thanks for the recommendation, man. Solid stuff.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, Nikolaj, as we close out this podcast, one thing I like to do with my guests is give you a chance to say anything you want to say. Promote whatever you want to promote at the end of the podcast. So, Nikolaj, You're up.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Yeah, to all the listeners, thanks for, if you're still listening, thanks for taking the time. Much appreciated. I hope you'll enjoy the album. It's something we're really proud of, something we worked hard for. We didn't compromise during it. And we're pretty content, but of course, if it can bring something to you, we'd love you for you to give it a shot. We're on all the usual suspects, CNFA band on social medias. And we keep, of course, everyone updated with tour dates and stuff like that. So you can check us out there. That's, I think, the long and short of it.
The long and short of it, perfect. Now it's time for me to end the podcast with 3 very specific things. First things first, when it comes to Cold Night for Alligators, yeah, you're going to want to end up checking out the Hindsight Notes again when it comes out on February 4th. You want to check out the rest of their music catalog as well. You're going to want to follow along with them on all the usual suspects of social media on YouTube. You're going to want to be able to stream the album, buy them, check them out online, buy some merch, and be able to know when tour dates are coming your way. So you're going to want to follow on all those platforms, right, and check them out. But you're not going to want to have to go and search up every individual one. You're going to want a place where you can just go and take a look at a bunch of different links and just click on them. It's like, okay, this link will take me here. I'll follow them there. You're going to want it as easy as possible, right? So take a look at the description of the podcast. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify Podcast, iHeart Radio, or Amazon, you're going to see something that says Find Cold Night for Alligators online, and every single link that I can find for the band, social media-wise, YouTube-wise, streaming-wise, merch-wise, whatever it might be, will be in the description, so you have an easy time following along with Cold Night for Alligators. Now, Nikolaj, time for number 2, which is, every time I have a guest on the podcast that I absolutely enjoy having on the podcast, I tend to make a certain promise, because I love having you guys on the podcast. I love to always, have you guys on again, and I want to make a promise to show how much I appreciate it. So this happens 100% of the time, and you, sir, are continuing the trend. So the promise is not an if. Not an if. If implies it might not happen. I say when, because it implies it's going to happen. We're just not sure the time yet. So when I get to see Cold Night for Alligators perform live for the first time, my promise to you, sir, is first round's on me.
Sounds good. Always happy to hear that. That's yeah. We'll try and see if we can't make that happen soon. Then when the world comes to its senses again, right? That's that would be cool.
I'll say this. It'll either happen over here in the U.S. or I'll travel over to Europe and see you guys. It'll be one or the other.
Oh, definitely. That sounds so good. Yeah, we'd love to, for a band from where we're from, getting to the U.S., man, that would be, yeah, I think for most bands, it doesn't even have to be a good tour just to try it. That's, yeah, we love to. I've been there, but never with the band. So, yeah.
We're going to have to make sure you get over here with the band then.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge dream of ours.
Well, we're going to help make it happen. So on that note, Nikolaj, I will not end this podcast by saying goodbye, because I would love to have you on the podcast again in the future, along with the fact that I have to make good on that promise, whether it's going to be over here in the U.S. when you guys come and tour over here, or whenever I get a chance to go back over to Europe and just start bouncing around, seeing as many shows as possible, and end up finding you guys at a show and just going to it. So anyway, this is a goodbye. Hell no, that's way too final. We're going to end it with see you later.
See you later.
Well, folks, that was my interview with Nikolaj from the band Cold Night for Alligators out of Copenhagen, Denmark. Again, when it comes to making sure you check out the Hindsight Notes, which comes out on February 4th, thanks to Rising Empire Records, you're going to want to make sure you know all about it. So you're going to want to follow the band on social media. Check out their YouTube videos. They got 4 videos out for this album, all ready before the release is out. You can also check them out, on tour when they go on tour. You want to keep up with those tour dates. There's me with my tongue-tiedness. Tongue-tied. So you're not going to want to miss out on them. You're not going to miss out when they go on tour. So to make sure you stay in line with them, make sure you stay in the know with them, be sure to look at the description of the podcast. They're going to see something that says Find Cold Night for Alligators online. Links, labels, everything to follow along with them. Stream their music, buy their music, download their music. Check them out at a live show, buy some merch is there for you, so please go check it out. Please remember to follow the Chord Progression Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, because we have a lot of great content on all those platforms. We have a lot of great, fun, wacky, meme-like preview videos for all of these podcasts. We post on all those places. And also you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Radio, and Amazon if you want to do the audio version. Video version to actually watch the artists talk with us, That's what YouTube is for. And I want to thank our sponsors, Phoenix Fitness and Custom Debuts. The links and discount codes for those sponsors are in the description of the podcast for you as well. I want to thank Nikolaj for coming on the podcast, the first band I ever got to speak to from Denmark. And I hope it's not the last time I get to speak with a band from Denmark, nor do I hope it's the last time I get to speak to Nikolaj, because I'd love to have him on again. I love bringing you guys new music. And in 2022, we're going to make it bigger, better, and even crazier. And of course, heck, look who we started out with already in 2022. Nonpoint, New Medicine, Cold Night for Alligators. Who's going to be next? More greatness, I'll tell you that. So on that note, that's going to be for today, guys. Thank you for watching to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. Up to the big, healthy, and hearty. See